Hi everybody, welcome to learning how to make a wraparound tulle skirt. My name is Amanda Quintana Bowles and I'm the owner of Oralia Creative Photography. And several times my clients request a beautiful tulle skirt, and so I figured why not learn how to make one. This is Black Beauty, which is my great-grandmother's old World War II era sewing machine. And this is what we're going to be making today, only we're going to be making one in pink. So what you're going to need in order for this all to happen, you're going to need some straight pins, and you'll need about 3 yards of grosgrain ribbon. This is pink. This is 2 1/4 wide, and I've already cut it because I have a huge roll of it, and I've already melted the very ends of it so that way it doesn't come undone or fray at the ends. And you usually just take something warm like a candle or flamer thing and just kind of hit the very edges here. So, and then of course you're going to need a bolt of tulle. This is a full bolt and we're going to use the whole thing. Alright, so lots of people were asking me, well, do you cut the tulle or anything? No, you don't actually. You're going to be using the full tulle and you're going to use the full bolt, so you don't need to worry about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by pulling off a nice big bit. I have a chair right beside me that the bolt can lie on, so when I start pulling, it doesn't fall on the floor. I've sequestered my kitty cat because he loves to eat tulle, so that's never a good thing. I'm going to pull one edge, so I'm going to open this up so you can kind of see. This is where the tulle opens, right here. And so we've got a full bit right there. So we're going to be grabbing, let's see, I think I'm going to pull from the very bottom. Starting off is always a little difficult because you want to figure out where you're going to start from. Alright, so you're going to take your tulle. Your sewing machine should already be threaded, and if it's not, every single machine is different, so making sure that the foot is lifted. I'm not a professional sewer by any stretch of the means. I learned how to sew in order to make these. Called my mom and asked her for help because I had no clue. So there is hope, I promise. It looks like I already undid this. I'll be right back. I'm going to have to re-thread. So all I'm going to do is re-thread my machine because I accidentally pulled it out. I am planning on putting this tutorial in its final form up on YouTube, so you can follow me either on Ilana or Oralia Creative on YouTube. Both places are a good place to start. Alright, so we're good. The way we're going to start off with our first bit is you're going to take your tulle at the very end. Alright, so this right here is the long end that's going to be going around the waist. And this is the short end that's going to be coming down. So this is going to go straight out. We don't want to touch that. What we are going to do is we're going to take the tulle, you're going to flip it a couple of times so that you have a nice kind of like a Z almost, like this. And this is going to be your first stitch. Alright, so I'm going to feed it underneath, drop my foot down. This is going to make some noise because it's an old-fashioned machine. While I'm doing this, I'm going to take my thumbs and do a squinching motion so that I start to create the folds. So I'm going to start off, and I'm just going to do about 1 inch. I'm going to hit the back so it goes back. And then one more time, forward. And the reason for this is to create a nice firm edge. All right, so I think we are ready to go. I'm gonna squinch up, so right where the kick plate is, this part right here, I'm gonna take my fingers at about 3 inches and I'm gonna squish over to make my first fold. So taking here, lifting up and pulling in the first fold and putting that through. I'm gonna do the same thing. And it looks as though my machine is not threaded properly. See, I told you I'm not a professional at this, but that is okay. It's also one of the fun things about having an older machine is that oftentimes it doesn't quite work the way you expect it, but they say things are made with love. You have to work at it, right? So where is everybody from right now? Do I have people watching? I got 2 people. At least. All right, there we go. I'll put the plate back in and we'll do this again. I still already have a nice little bump right here. Hi, California. Hey, it's Yvette. Finally made it. Sorry, it took me a bit. All right, here we go. Once more. Dropping the foot plate down, and we already have one nice edge, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. It keeps popping on me. The beauty of live TV, right? There we go. So far I've made about 4 of these in different colors. This will be my second pink one that I've made so far, but I decided to do this one because I already had the ribbon. I actually had a difficult time finding a spool of ribbon over at my local fabric stores. I tried Joann's and Michael's and they all had really odd colors and nothing that really matched what I had. So that was really disappointing. But I figured, you know what, I'll just use what I've got and I'm sure I can use this. So, all right, let's see. Hooray, it worked. Okay, so I'm gonna make that fold. And I'm leaving probably about 1.5 inches from on the edge here, so that way it goes underneath this ribbon once we're done. And don't worry about it being really, really thin right now as far as being able to be seeing through all of this, because we're going to be doubling it up. This is something I do that's different from other people who make these kinds of skirts. They use maybe half a bolt and they try to crunch things up really, really bulkily. And so as a result, you end up having a lot of bulk around the waistline, which doesn't look very good unless you're a teeny tiny person, and even then that adds more bulk. So I make mine a little differently, and this is purely self-taught by doing a few and seeing what really worked and what didn't. Now don't worry about it being perfectly straight or anything, because again, this is going to be something you're going to be doubling up. The first pleats are kind of nice to have nice and flat, so that way you have a nice bit of opacity once you get the once you double it up. Give myself a little bit more tulle here. And I'm going to come to a point here where I'm going to see if you have any questions. I'm realizing that talking while working is something that's more difficult than expected. It's easy to do when you're taking pictures because you're directing people to what they need to do. Although I suppose I'm doing the same thing here, right? Now with this old machine, it's very, very straightforward. I don't have any zigzags or anything. This is just a straight stitch going all the way across. So here's what we've got so far. We've got some really nice pleats. I guess that's the best way to call it, pleats or gathers. And just going to continue on making this nice line going across. As we get further on in the bolt, it becomes a little more difficult because then you have a lot more fuss that you're dealing with. But it's okay. Just keep working and it'll all work out. Any questions so far? I'm folding over probably, let's see, probably about 1.5 inches going across. So it's again about, I take this and then I squish it over and move it over. So that's what, 3 inches here, and then you fold it over, so that's maybe 1.5. Did that answer the question? Somebody just keep pushing it off the edge, and I apologize if it it starts obscuring the camera. I'm doing a video of this alongside the periscope. This is my second periscope that I've done. The very first one was just kind of walking around. So I've kind of rigged up my iPhone onto a tripod so that it'll all situate properly. I did try doing a skirt like this just doing hand sewing, and it was so difficult. I found it just, particularly with this sheer amount of material, because you just kept going, and it ended up being really, really bulky. Again, like I was making mention before, and it was just a lot of work. It made something, just by figuring out how to sew something very simple like this, just a simple straight stitch, it made a huge difference in time. I ended up, the very first one I did was a blue skirt, a royal blue, and I don't have a mannequin, so that was also kind of difficult. So I ended up creating a pretend mannequin out of grocery bags and stuffing. It didn't work very well. So that's on my wish list, is to get a real mannequin so that I can do some more advanced maneuvers, if you will. So again, I'm taking from here with a little plate on, let's see, this plate right here. Sorry. This plate here, right underneath the foot. I'm taking about 1 inch, and then I'm just reaching over and pulling up it's about 1.5 inches or so. Oh, that's great to know. Thank you. I actually looked at the ones at Joann's, and the sizes of the mannequins were size 4. I'd really like to have at least a size 8 at the very smallest, particularly because a lot of my clients are curvy, and so a lot of my wardrobe is larger sizes, so it makes it difficult to really kind of utilize mannequins that are that small. So I'm actually looking online at some store warehouses that do shelving and also mannequins as well. we're doing really good here. We're probably about halfway through the bolt. And I haven't drowned in tulle just yet. And sorry if I'm not catching your questions quickly. I actually have an iPhone over here that I'm looking at as I'm sewing. So if I don't answer your question, please ask it again. Now, something that you can do with this type of skirt, instead of it being a fixed size, this is a specific type where it's a wraparound skirt, almost like an apron. And so it'll fit people from any size, even children if you want. And you have plenty of length as well. I've used these in several different ways. Sometimes I'll just, depending upon how bunched up it is, I might use it with a corset over it, so it creates this really beautiful line. If you want it shorter, you could probably cut it, or you could, instead of sewing the edge, sewing where I started at the very bottom of the bolt, you could start in the middle and have a T length. So then you probably would have to do less work, because you wouldn't have to be going through and doubling things up. I don't know if that makes sense. So once I'm done with this whole bolt, I'm going to take everything that we've sewn and I'm going to fold it in half and then re-sew it across. So that way I have the depth and the opacity. Now, if you wanted to make it shorter, I'm sure what you could do, and actually I should try this, I haven't tried this yet, is you could take the folded side of the bolt and push that through and sew that. And then you would have your 2 layers and it would be a shorter skirt. Now, the only thing that I would be concerned about is if you're doing that, how much fluff are you going to have? I'm not really sure. You probably would have to then fluff it up when you put it on somebody, which isn't a bad thing. I think that's what many times a lot of the store-made versions have. Although a lot of the store-made versions have several layers, but they're all very, very, very thin. This particular tulle is really wonderful. It's very, very soft and it flows nicely, which is super important for photographers. Or for anybody. You hate to have a pot scrubber on you. But this picks up the wind quite nicely. And so if you put a fan on your client, if you're a photographer and you have a client wearing this, you get some gorgeous, gorgeous movement. Also, sorry, caught up on the bolt here. As you get longer and further in, it does get a little more unwieldy. So here we go. I need to do more sewing and less talking. And something I found also with just doing this fold is that it lies flatter on the waistline, and it also it creates more opacity with the fabric. It also makes it a little easier to deal with once we get to the ribbon part, because then you're not dealing with a lot of bulk. And that's, I think, the biggest problem with a lot of these homemade skirts is the bulk. And because everybody wants to look like a princess or a ballerina, but it can quickly turn from a dream to a nightmare if it's a little on the bulky side. So something also, I'm using just a white thread, even though this is a pink skirt. It's an old trick that my great-grandma taught me. She said you don't have to have, if you have black thread and white thread, you should be good for anything. So that's what I'm using right now, is just a white thread. I mean, for things like the turquoise or the royal blue skirt, I will get royal blue or the matching colors. But for something light like this, or if I'm going to be doing an off-white or beige, I'll probably just use white. And this is just a general purpose thread. It's nothing special. Got it for $4 at Hobby Lobby, so yeah, super expensive, right? It does the job. It does the job quite well. And one thing I have found is a problem with tulle skirts is they do get a little staticky. And so the way that I end up helping that is I get a spray bottle and fill it with water and about a half a cupful of Downy or some sort of fabric softener. And I spray it with that. So it freshens the fabric, but it also removes a lot of the static. I have thrown a couple of them into the wash, and it's just I put them on delicate by themselves. And make sure that you don't throw them through the tumble dry. I just hang it back up on a hanger and allow it to air dry. When I'm not using them, I usually put them into a garment bag, particularly because my cat likes to eat them. So having that protected is good. See, I told you I was halfway through, but I think I lied to you. I've got a bit more to go. So, the place that I ended up getting this was at Gifts International, and this is the light pink color. I have probably another 8 different colors that I'll be making skirts out of pretty soon. So now I'm actually getting a little bit larger on my folds. This is kind of towards the middle, and so I'm figuring that this is going to be towards the front of the skirt. So that way, even if there's just a little bit more of gather, it's okay. So the other thing about these tulle skirts that's quite lovely is, aside from them being able to fit anyone, it's you can really utilize them to make really fantastical sort of portraits if you're a photographer. Just because you have so much length to work with, and you have a lot of fabric, that just makes for so much more fun to be able to have your client dance around with it, or pose them on a chaise and swoosh it out behind them. I've done some very dramatic portraits with these skirts, particularly the black and the white one. Really good colors to start off with, by the way. I get so many requests for these when other people or my prospective clients see these. They just can't believe it. Oh my gosh, I can wear that? Yes, you can wear that. And I also get a lot of people who are like, oh, but I'm too heavy, or I'm too curvy, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. That's always the story, right? We always hear that. And that's what's nice about the wraparound. It fits anybody. Getting your client into it, or your person into it, can be a little bit fun. I'll show you how to do it in a little bit here. I'll show you with the black one because that one's already completed. And for those just joining, thank you for joining us on the wraparound wraparound tutorial, wraparound skirt tutorial, tulle skirt tutorial. So I'm gonna stand up here and we're gonna kind of shush some of this over. There's a lot of skirt here. Just gonna shove it down below the tripod. All right, just see, hopefully you can see a little bit better as we continue on our merry way here. I didn't start timing, so I'm not really sure how long this has gone so far. I was hoping to get this done in a half hour, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. And if you're just joining me, what I'm doing is I have a full bolt of tulle. I have it resting on a chair kind of like this right beside me, so that way as I pull it and unrolls, it doesn't fall to the floor and doesn't get twisted up. That's something I ended up learning the hard way, because the very first one that I did, I was fighting with the tulle the whole time. The bolt kept getting wrapped up and I was trapped underneath it for a while there. It was just really difficult. Yes, I am sewing right off the bolt. What I've done is I have not cut anything as far as the tulle itself. I've only opened up the tulle so that it's, when you have the bolt, you have the tulle folded in half. All I'm doing is opening up the tulle and sewing one end. So the short end of the bolt is what's going to be the length of the skirt, while the rest of the bolt is going to be what goes around the circumference. And at this time, all I'm doing is running a very simple seam, straight seam, and gathering the tulle in about one and a half gathers. So basically here and right here, and that's what I'm sewing, is this right here. And so once I'm done with this, I'm going to take the whole length that I have already sewn, I'm going to double it, and then run one more seam going across. Somebody asked earlier if you could just make it shorter, and I did suggest possibly, instead of pulling the tulle off of the bolt and opening up the edge this way, to actually take the part that's folded and sew on that edge instead. Now, something I would be concerned about is sometimes some manufacturers, when they put cloth onto a bolt, they're not specifically straight. And so particularly when you get towards the end of a bolt, sometimes the fold is a little wonky. So that might be something to worry about. I don't know. That would be my only concern about that. So here we go, continuing on. And we're doing pretty good here. And for those just joining, I have already cut 3 yards of grosgrain ribbon. It's a 2 1/4 inch width, and it's the same color as the tulle that I'm working with. And I melted the ends so that it doesn't come undone or fray. So that's already been done. Now, if I'm not mistaken, most of the time, if you get ribbon off of the smaller spools, I think those spools usually are 3 yards. So it's just perfect for what we're working with. So speaking of getting wonky, the edges are starting to be a little folded, so I'm having to unfold as I'm going through. And I think it's just the nature of the beast when it comes to something as pliable as tulle. And it's also becoming a little more difficult to work with because I've got so much going on over here, so much gathering and everything. The stitching that I'm using is actually very how close, I guess that's the proper term for it, which I think works quite well for the tool because it's got holes in it. So something that's a little bit wider is more apt to rip. And if you're gonna be tugging at this or moving it around, you don't want it to rip on you very easily. So the smaller stitch is a really good idea. And this is very, very old school machine, so there's not a lot of fancy going on here. I'm sure that if you have a newer machine, you probably have a ruffler or something that allows you to create a ruffle very easily. I'd be interested to see someone do that, just to see what kind of a gathering you get or what kind of a ruffle. You can see that my ruffles are very, very, very flat, so that once we put the grosgrain ribbon on it, they're going to lie very flat. So that's something I do like about the method that I'm using right now. Has anybody used a ruffler on their tool? If you've made one of these before? So I'm going to have to search on eBay and get some old-fashioned attachments for this. So I did not know how to sew. My grandmother was a seamstress, my mother's a seamstress. When my grandmother, Oralia, who I named my company after, when she passed on, I was given this machine in her estate. And it was beautiful. It's a beautiful machine, and it was this really cute little carrying case, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so it just kind of sat in my closet for 8 years, just gathering dust. And so when I had my idea to make a skirt for my Butterfly Queen photo shoot, which you can see on my website, I tried making the skirt initially with hand sewing, because I could hand sew. And it was turning very quickly into a nightmare. I just didn't know what to do. It was being unwieldy. And so I said, well, all right, let's pull it out. Thank you. We'll pull it out and see what to do. I just looked at it for like a day. I pulled it open and got some mineral oil and just started tearing it apart. And it's very easy to pull these apart, kind of like the old-timey automobiles. You know, you could look under the hood and maybe do something to it. And that's how it was with this. So, but I didn't know how to thread it. I didn't know how to, I just didn't know how to do anything on it. Thank goodness for YouTube and people who are enthusiasts for these kinds of machines. So I was able to find some tutorials on how to run a simple stitch, how to thread the machine, and I got kind of far, and then it started to eat up everything. The material and the thread. So I called my mom and I asked her for help, and so she said, well, just come on over and I'll teach you how to sew. And so it was that afternoon where she pulled out her sewing machine and we ran through it and did the first blue skirt together. Then I came home and tried to use my machine. Still wasn't making it very well. Thank goodness for technology. I got her on FaceTime. And so she helped me through FaceTime on what I needed to do. And was able to sew my first skirt on my own, which was super exciting. I'm sure my grandma's applauding, saying, it's about time, young lady. So now instead of Black Beauty gathering dust, she's making skirts. So something I wish that we had was smell-o-vision, because the smell of an old machine working is the best smell ever. All right. I'm seeing the end of the bolt. All right. I hope it's helping somebody out a little bit. All right, so again, just still making these pleats and leaving about 1.5 inches from the edge of my stitch to the edge of the, I'm so glad, yay! So 1/2 inch, I mean, sorry, 1.5 inches between my stitch and the edge of the fabric. I'm at the end of the bolt, woo, all right. So a few more stitches and I think we're good. Thanks for sticking with me so far. So have you all sewn before, or is this a new thing for you? Oh, you've done more than I have then. So I guess I don't like to dive into something easy. I come up with a drawing and I say, okay, I'm going to put this together. I don't know what I'm doing. Although, when I was a little kid, I used to do the same thing. I'd hand sew dresses for my dolls and stuff, and have really fun materials. So my mom, like I say, she sews, and so she always would have these really beautiful odds and ends left over from projects. Sorry, I missed somebody there. Okay. All right, we're at the end of this. So I've got this much left. What I'm going to do is do the same thing that we did when we started. I'm going to fold it over a couple of times so that way you have a nice strong edge to work with. That's super. All right, so in making this kind of a turn, we're going to keep going forward, then we're going to go back, and then we're going to come forward again, just so that we secure that seam. Okay, turn it back. One more time. All right, and now I'm going to lift my foot, pull up my needle, pull this out, and cut it off. Yes, a locking stitch. Thank you for the proper term. All right, so I'm going to stand up and show you what we've got. This is one edge here. I'm going to go all the way. Hang on, make sure I don't pull out the. This is a lot of tool. Okay, here's the other end. So I'm going to take both ends, put them together, and just kind of make sure we're all, I'm going to basically find both ends. All right. I think here we go. So there's my other end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run one more stitch, actually. Let's see. I could technically, if I wanted to, do this. So this would be in fourths. And I think I may. But the next step is going to be, and it's already, my camera just shut off, so I'm going to kind of leave it here and let you guys know where we're at. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this that's been folded in half, I'm going to run another stitch all along the edge. After I'm done with this, going from edge to edge, at which point I'm going to have two sides pulled together as one, so you have this lovely opacity. And when it's all gathered, the client is not going to have to wear something underneath so you can't see underwear or anything. So the next part that's going to happen after this is you're going to take your grosgrain ribbon. I usually then pull it in half, like so. And this is going to be the center for the waistband. And so I take this, figure out where the center is on the tool. You're going to take some straight pins, and I'm going to just kind of get this started so you can see it. I'm not going to actually finish it because I think this is running quite long, but I will have it on the YouTube channel for sure. So what you're going to do, let's see if I can show this in a way that you can see. All right. Can you see that? Not very well, let's see. Nope. You're going to take your ribbon, and then you're going to take your straight pins, and you're going to straight pin the ribbon right along your seam. So you're going to be, it's going to look like this. So once you draw your seam, so your seam is right here. I should have picked a darker color. So your seam's right here. The ribbon goes right across, and then your stitch is going to fall. Here's the end, the bottom of your ribbon. The stitch is going to fall right here so that it pulls everything flat. Now some people would like to actually do a turn so that you have a, let's see, oh, it's better up against me. So you have a cover. I've done this for a few of my skirts, but I actually prefer the flat. And the reason being, I'm sorry, yes, just right under the seam, just a little under the seam is where you're going to be making your next seam to put your ribbon on. So you're gonna, I find it easy to put a pin probably every 3 inches. Okay, let's see. Let's see if that focuses a little bit better. Not by much, huh? So the seam is running right, it might be easier for me to write it, but let's see. The seam is right here. And this is the bottom of the ribbon right here. So you're going to be running your seam just underneath the seam that you use to sew the tool together. Does that make sense? Let me show you what it's going to look like on a finished product or finished piece. I'm going to take this off. We're going to look at the black one. Hopefully this shows up a little better. So this is running with the flat ribbon. And the inside of the skirt looks like this. So there's raw edges on the other side of the ribbon. But it's nice and flat and it's super soft, so it doesn't really matter so much. And then if you look closely, this is where this is clear. This is where your seam runs. You'll be running, yes, no, you do not gather anymore when you're doing the ribbon. The gathering will happen when you, sorry, instead of me talking to you like that, when you fold the tulle in half and bring it together again and you run that next stitch, that's when you're going to do the next gathering. So that'll be, you've basically done 2 gatherings. You'll do the first one, just the single ply. Once you fold it, then you're going to gather again. The last seam will be your ribbon. And so the ribbon will go on top of that. Now, how do they wear these things? You have this nice wide open bit. What you're going to do is you're going to figure out where the opening is, which is going to be the back. Like it's going to fit like an apron. You're going to take this end, wrap it around, take the other end, wrap it around. So it's harder to put it on yourself. And then you can tie it in the front, or if you prefer to have this to the back, just swoosh it around to the back, and then you have your bow to the back. The length is really long, so you can even have your client standing on an apple box, and you have a lot of length coming down. Again, it flows nicely in the wind, and seeing as you have just so much, it makes it easy for you to really play with. So that's your tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Sorry I ran a little long, but I hope that helped. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye.